All right, guys, we are on chapter 7 of Free to Choose. This one's called Who Protects the Consumer? Who Protects the Consumer? Chapter 7 of Free to Choose. This part is called Consumer Products Safety Commission. Consumer Products Safety Commission. Not very long. The Consumer Products Safety Commission exemplifies the change in regulatory activity in the past decade or so. It cuts across industries. Its main concern is not with price or cost, but with safety. It has wide discretionary authority and operates under only the most general of mandates. Activated on May 14, 1973, the Commission is specifically mandated to protect the public against unreasonable risks of injury from consumer products, to assist consumers in evaluating the safety of these products, to develop standards for consumer products, to minimize conflicts of these standards at the federal, state, and local level, and to promote research and investigation into the causes and prevention of product-related deaths, illnesses, and injuries. If authority covers any article or component part produced or distributed for sale to a consumer, or for the personal use, consumption, or enjoyment of a consumer, except for tobacco and tobacco products, motor vehicles and motor vehicle equipment, drugs, food, aircraft and aircraft components, certain boats, and certain other items, almost all covered by such other regulatory agencies as the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the FDA, the Federal Aviation Administration, and the Coast Guard. Although the CPSC is in its early stages, it is likely to become a major agency that will have far-reaching effects on the products and services we shall be able to buy. It has conducted tests and issued standards on products varying from book matches to bicycles, from children's toy cap guns to television receivers, from refuse bins to miniature Christmas tree lights. The objective of safer products is obviously a good one, but at what cost and by what standards? Unreasonable risk is hardly a scientific term capable of objective specification. What decibel level of noise from a cap gun is an unreasonable risk to a child or adult's hearing? The spectacle of trained, highly paid experts, in quotes, experts with earmuffs shooting cap guns as part of the process of trying to answer that question is hardly calculated to instill confidence in the taxpayer that his money is being spent sensibly. A safer bicycle may be slower, heavier, and costlier than a less safe bicycle. By what criteria can the CPSC bureaucrats, in issuing their standards, decide how much speed to sacrifice, how much weight to add, how much extra cost to impose in order to achieve how much extra safety? Do safer standards produce more safety, or do they only encourage less attention and care by the user? Most bicycle and similar accidents are, after all, caused by human carelessness or error. Most of these questions do not admit of objective answers, yet they must be answered implicitly in the course of devising and issuing standards. The answers will reflect partly the arbitrary judgments of the civil servants involved, occasionally the judgment of consumers or consumer organizations that happen to have a special interest in the item in question, but mostly the influence of the makers of the products. In the main, they are the only ones who have sufficient interest and expertise to comment knowledgeably on proposed standards. Indeed, much of the formulation of standards has simply been turned over to trade associations. You may be sure those standards will be formulated in the interest of the members of the association, with a sharp eye to protecting themselves from competition, both from possible new producers at home and from foreign producers. The result will be to strengthen the competitive position of existing domestic manufacturers and to make innovation and the development of new and improved products more expensive and difficult. When products enter the marketplace in the usual course of events, there is an opportunity for experiment, for trial and error. No doubt shoddy products are produced, mistakes are made, unsuspected defects turn up, but mistakes usually tend to be on a small scale, though some are major, as in the recent case of the Firestone 500 radial tire, and can be corrected gradually. Consumers can experiment for themselves, decide what features they like and what features they do not like. When the government steps in through CPSC, the situation is different. Many decisions must be made before the product has been subjected to extensive trial and error and actual use. These standards cannot be adjusted to different needs and tastes. They must apply uniformly to all. Consumers will inevitably be denied the opportunity to experiment with a range of alternatives. Mistakes will still be made, and when they are almost sure to be major. Two examples from the CPSC illustrate the problem. In August 1973, only 3 months after starting operation, it banned certain brands of aerosol spray adhesives as an imminent hazard. Its decision was based primarily on the preliminary findings of one academic researcher who claimed that they could cause birth defects. After more thorough research failed to corroborate the initial report, the commission lifted the ban in March 1974. That prompt admission of error is most commendable and most unusual for a government agency, yet it did not prevent harm. It seems that at least 9 pregnant women who had used the spray adhesives reacted to the news of the Commission's initial decision by undergoing abortions. They decided not to carry through their pregnancies for fear of producing babies with birth defects. So let me read that again. That prompt admission of error is most commendable and most unusual for a government agency. Yet it did not prevent. It seems that at least 9 pregnant women who had used the spray adhesives reacted to the news of the Commission's initial decision by undergoing abortions. That sucks, right? They decided not to carry through their pregnancies for fear of producing babies with birth. Let me stop here. When talking about chemicals, you got to be careful. All chemicals are probably bad, right? If they're not as natural as possible. A far more serious example was the episode with respect to tris. The commission, when established, was assigned responsibility for administering the Flammable Fabrics Act, dating back to 1953, which was intended to reduce death and injuries from accidental burning of products, fabrics, or related materials. A standard for children's sleepwear that had been issued in 1971 by the predecessor agency was strengthened by the CPSC in mid-1973. At the time, the cheapest way to meet this standard was by impregnating the cloth with a flame-retardant chemical, tris. Soon, something like 99% of all children's sleepwear produced and sold in the United States was impregnated with tris. Later, it was discovered that tris was a potent carcinogen. On April 8, 1977, the Commission banned its use in children's apparel and provided for withdrawal of tris-treated garments from the market and their return by consumers. Needless to say, in its 1977 annual report, the Commission made a virtue of the correction of a dangerous situation that had arisen solely as a result of its own earlier actions, without acknowledging its own role in the development of the problem. The initial requirements exposed millions of children to the danger of developing cancer. Both the initial requirements and the subsequent banning of tris imposed heavy costs on the producers of children's sleepwear, which meant ultimately on their customers. They were taxed, as it were, coming and going. This example is instructive in showing the difference between across-the-board regulation and the operation of the market. Had the market been allowed to operate, some manufacturers no doubt would have used tris in order to try to enhance the appeal of their sleepwear by being able to claim flame resistance, but tris would have been introduced gradually. There would have been time for the information about tris carcinogenic qualities to have been discovered and to lead to its withdrawal before it was used on massive scale. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Sometimes they're trying to have too much control and they think they're doing a good job, but they're no, it still rings true today. It's taking me a long time to read this book. At 100 pages, already 200 in, got 100 more.